Okay. G'day, everybody. Welcome to the NRL SuperCoach Tragics first podcast. And tonight, I just quickly want to say we're all a bit nervous, especially me. So just ride along with us until we get used to it. We'll get better as the pod goes. I'll quickly shout out two things: Tragics overalls. So if you're an overall player, jump in our group, guys, on the Tragics page, which is 922904. I also want to give a shout out to SuperCoach 360, and Timbo is one of their guys. We did some pods with them for the BBL and for the racing, and they're a great bunch of guys. So their overall group is 790873. They also have a page called SuperCoach Podcast. What is it? NRL 360 Podcast page. So jump on that. Okay, I'll quickly jump in and introduce the cast. So Dano, how are you going, Dan?
Not bad, mate. How you going?
Yeah, good. Nervous, but keen as for the footy.
Yeah, all good, mate. Yeah, I think the only thing getting me going right now is how close the footy is. So pretty pumped.
Yeah, pretty pumped myself. And how you going, Tim?
Yeah, doing really well, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity to jump on, boys. It's always good to talk SuperCoach, and as we get closer to the footy season, we're all certainly looking forward to it. Just chewing at the bit, playing with our sides, and hopefully we can help some of the viewers with some good information. Thanks heaps for the shout out too, mate, with the 360 boys. We've had a good off season with the racing and with the BBL, and it's been great to sort of become part of the team.
Yeah, for those that don't know, they have a podcast every Tuesday night. They go live. It's on our page, on the Tragics page, so look out for it. And Brody, how you doing, mate?
How we going, Glennie?
Good, mate.
Enjoying. Ready, pumped.
All right, so what I was going to do quickly was go through and talk to you quickly about your SuperCoach history. So I'll start with you again, Dan. How long have you been playing SuperCoach, and what are your best few ranks, mate?
I won't talk about my best few ranks because there's very few ranks that are actually pretty good. Usually I'm a bit of a head-to-head player. I've been playing for about 8.5 years now. We started midway through 2014 and got hooked from there. Like I said before, a bit of a head-to-head player mainly, but my claim to fame really was 2020. I came 15th overall. So everything went downhill from there, I think, after last year. But looking forward to this year. I think I'm going to bring it back again. I think those extra trades might help me out this year. So
yeah, that's interesting. I remember the season you came 15th, mate, and everything seemed to click well for you that season. You did pretty well.
Yeah. I think Carey Walker's going to have a nice place in my heart for how he helped me out and get those scores for me. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, nice. And what about you, Tim? How long have you been playing SuperCoach, mate?
Mate, I've been playing since 2014, or at least when I jump on the app and hit the history button, it goes as far back as 2014. Mate, I was actually really pleasantly surprised when I had a look before because I'd never really thought about it. But the worst place I've ever come, and I've played every season since 2014, was I finished 6,500 in the first season. Since then, I've had three of my last 5 have finished in the top 1,000. Last 2 years, I've finished 250th and 243rd. Play a bit of head-to-head with mates that I went to school with and guys from my hometown up in Gladstone in central Queensland. But that's about it. I'm pretty much strictly an overall player. I try and read as much as I can and help people out as much as I can on the various sites. So, yeah, it's something that I really enjoy doing and I really get a lot out of.
Okay, nice. And how are you going, bro?
Yeah, good, mate. Obviously, I'm only here to run cash comps. My overall is pretty shit house, but I am a 2-time Herbert Cup champion, which is the reason that we play this. Dan hasn't seen the trophy. It's the only reason he joined, but, I'll give him the overall status, so...
And
happy to be on. Not a lot, but...
Explain, please, Brody, to our viewers how they get involved in your cash comps.
Yeah, obviously, so through our page, I do it on the Tragics page, but then have an own page of the cash. Been doing it for about 3 or 4 years with Dan and Aaron. And after this year, we would have paid over $100,000 in prizes. So pretty safe.
And you do that for overall, head-to-head and draft, is that right?
Yeah, so got drafts overall, head-to-head. There's one that Dan runs, a $5 knockout. So $5 can win you hopefully 400 this year. So it's a good investment. But yeah, looking to do around 40K worth of cashies this year, so should be a very good year.
Yeah, it's a good season. I'm looking forward to it. We've got a few things going on this year. So one of the first things we was going to discuss was the rule changes. As we've heard, there's a few changes this year to the season, and I think super coaches' hands kind of been forced, with what's going on with COVID. And if you were in the BBL, you would have seen there was a lot of laid outs and all sorts of things going on and chaos. So they've made some changes. So I'll quickly run through what they are, and then we'll have a quick chat, guys, about what you think about them. So one of the main ones, and I won't go through all of them because there's quite a few, but the ones are there's more flexibility in how you set up your league. So you are into leagues, you can do that a bit different. But the bigger ones are, so there's more trades this season. We've got 42 trades from 37 on the 25 rounds. We have what's called the trade boost. So we get 5 trades extra that we can trade an extra trade any round, which takes away the 5 trades that we get in the maxi round. But we can have, we get 3 trades in that round, and we can, if we want, use an extra one and have 4. So I'll come to you first, Tim, because you seem to be well versed on this topic. So what are your thoughts on it, mate? And is there anything I haven't said right?
Yeah, mate, I like it to the extent that it does give you a little bit more flexibility, I should say. I've been playing the Fantasy Premier League for a long time, since about 2005. And I really like the option in that if you save a trade one week, you can use it the next. So I think that the way that they've set the rules up this year, by being able to play it a little bit strategically, and that you ideally don't want to blow your 5 extra trades all in one go, you're going to space that out. I think that's going to be really important for overall players, especially with trying to climb the ranks come the end of the season when everyone's teams start to look the same. The other thing I do like about it, I hope if I'm not taking this away from any of the other boys, but by being able to use 3 trades on any given week, in the past, you've sort of gone a downgrade and an upgrade. Yeah. You'll have 2 guys. One guy might be peaking, so you drop him down, you get some cash, and then you use it on an upgrade to play somebody else. Now it might be a little bit better. You can play things strategically. Again, it might be 1 downgrade, 2 upgrades. Or do something similar like that. You might then look at using 6 trades over 2 rounds and try and plan strategically so that you've got more cash. So I like that side of things. As a whole, as far as increasing the trade numbers, there's still going to be monkeys that are just going to burn through them as fast as they possibly can. So I like to play a little bit more strategic, and I'll be trying to hold as many trades as I can for as long as I can.
So maths isn't my strong suit, but I think if I worked it out right, there's 11 that we can have to save to max trade. Is that right? Has anyone worked out the numbers?
So I think on the, I'll steal off the 360 boys from last night. They said it's 1.8 trades around, where it was 1.6 or 1.3 last year. So
okay. So what do you think of the rule, Dan?
Yeah, well, it kind of falls into my hand because I'm a bit of a tradeaholic. So I'm very, very bad at saving. I always have this plan to save my trades and never do. So I worked it out. If you do 2 trades every single round, you'll run out on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th round. Sorry, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So you had 4 rounds without trades. So in the past, if we max traded all the way through, we'd have 6 rounds, 7 rounds without any trades. So it is a lot better. In saying that, there's a reason they've added these trades in, and that is due to COVID people. Like if someone falls out of last minute due to COVID protocol. So these trades, even though we've got extra trades, you will need them. I guarantee you there'll be some times there where you have your plan. Like I know it happened last year, for example. People brought in Bradman Best that week, and then he played the last game and then was ruled out last second. This is going to happen a lot with these COVID times. So don't get too hopeful that you're going to have all these extra trades, because I guarantee you're going to need them.
No, that's right. And I that was another one of those rule changes that you just mentioned, was that we can actually reverse a trade. So if you make a trade now, usually once lockout's gone, that's it. You've burned your trade. But these now you can actually reverse that trade even after lockout, which I think is huge. I see a few pros and cons. I mean, I'm an overall player and I usually burn trades early. That's the way I play. I try to build money fast, build to the quickest side I can, and then it's a matter of numbers and getting to what I want to do. So it's interesting. What I like about it is that we've been told before the season So that way it's not something that's suddenly dumped on us through the season, because I'm very rigid. I have a plan, and so I can incorporate that into my plan. All right. So is there anything else you want to say on it, Brad? Anything about it?
Look, I think it's completely different for a head-to-head and an overall player this year.
Yeah.
So like, as you said, you're an overall, you're going to burn them, 5 rounds in, I'm probably going to become a head-to-head player. And I'll probably save those trades for the finals so I can max out and use them against, to bring in those pod players. So, it really depends on what you're going to focus on. If I start burning them early, then I'm going to have to be an overall player because I won't have any trades left in the finals. So you just really got to focus on what you want to do this year and pick one or the other, because I don't think you can do both and succeed. So
I think one of the interesting things about the cast that we have in Tragics this season is that we've also got Chris and Laurie who aren't on tonight. And Laurie's, like myself, an overall player. Tim's an overall player. You, Dan, and Chris play a lot of cash comps in head-to-head. So I think we can give different perspectives on how to cover both scenarios, which is good because, I think head-to-head is very interesting. And I've always been shouting out, I'd love for us to be able to have 2 sides on one platform, head-to-head and overall. But regardless, we can't do that. So I think it'd be great this season to be able to discuss at length how those trades are used through the season.
How about you just have my team players head-to-head, and then we can all win? Yeah?
Some players just can't be helped, bro. All right, guys. So we'll move on to the next thing that we wanted to talk about, and that is how your teams are shaping up. So as I said, just to reiterate, this round we're not going as depth in the players as will. The next one we do, we'll take viewers' questions, and we're really going to go into depth through the positions. We're going to look at the guns, we're going to look at the mid-ranges, we're going to look at the cows, and we're going to look at the most important things, which is benches and rotations and how roles have changed within clubs, because I think they're all important discussions to discuss around how we select our team. So I'll start this time with you, Timmy. How's your team shaping up, mate? And who are the 2 players you feel are a must-have to start for you?
Well, it's a little bit interesting this week because if you asked me last week, I would have said I've written articles that sort of contradict my thinking over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I was all over Nathan Cleary about 3 or 4 days ago. Then the information came out that he may not make round 1, might be not back in until round 3 or 4. So I'd sort of made some changes to squeeze things where I'd gone a little more keeper friendly. But now I've sort of changed them to bring Cleary in. And now with that news, I think now, basically every time I make changes, I take photos of my team. Yeah. And that's one really good piece of advice that I'd suggest that people do. Because over the next 5 weeks, we're going to get a lot of information. There's going to be players that are iffy before round 1. Instead of pulling your hair out every 5 minutes, once you get a team that you're happy with, take a photo of it and then make sure you save that, because I'm going to revert back to the team that I had a couple of weeks ago, which I think is Cleary out. Hughes from the Storm is definitely going to be my halfback.
And is there another one that you think's a must-have to start with?
If you've got the money left over, maybe Turbo. That was my general consensus, that I wasn't going to go either. And then I squeezed things so that I could get Cleary. Then I had enough cash left over. I've only got to drop one gun and I can put Turbo back in. I think you've probably got to have one or the other. The hard part's going to be 4 weeks into the game, trying to find enough money to bring both players in. So I think you've probably got to have one or the other.
On the tip that you gave, Tim, one of the things that I've done every season, and I do it always, is I create different scenarios by taking photos. So I'll create a side and then I'll take photos of that and I'll hold it. And then what I'll do is I'll look if such and such is going to play, because all of us are building benches with placeholders, with that player might start or he might start or this, that information. I agree with you on Cleary. I was always starting Cleary. I think the gap between Cleary and the next halfback is huge. I don't agree with you on Turbo. I think the gap between Turbo, Teddy and Paps won't be near as much as it was last year. So, but it's all subjective. It's all opinion. And that we've all got different ones. What do you think, Dan? How's your team shaping
Can
up?
I just say really quick, Glenn?
Yeah.
I agreed. And as you know, I wrote a piece that hasn't been published yet, but I wrote a piece where I looked at Cleary and Turbo and said, I'm not touching either. I think now with the news that's come out about Cleary, Penrith are a very different football side without Nathan Cleary. They've played Manly round 1. Panthers without Cleary. Turbo, I can see having an absolute field day.
Okay. Dan, how do you see it, mate? How's your team shaping up, and who are your two that you feel you must start with?
Yeah, it's probably hard to tell. My team's changed so often today, especially. I've just been listening to a few podcasts out there as well, some good content out there. So, but it's changed so much today. But before we heard the news about Cleary, I was actually toying with the idea of not actually starting with Cleary. I was looking around at other options there, like a stepping stone to get to him. But I just feel like there could be some price dropping there from Cleary anyway, coming back from that shoulder injury. This is coming from a Panthers fan myself. So here's a fun fact as well. I know it's a very small sample size, but Penrith have never won a grand final and won the first round the following year. They always have a recession. Yeah, so it's only a very small sample size, obviously, 3 grand finals.
What is this?
Is that in the last 100 years or what?
They also haven't won on an Olympic year either. Neither is the Storm, but
We're filled with fun facts this evening.
Yeah, I saw that article about the Winter Olympic Games. I thought I'd come up with my own fun facts, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, so I'm looking at Pappenhausen. He was my first pick. I'm pretty sure I'll be the same with everybody else. I know he's obviously not as good as Turbo, but I believe he's pretty damn close. I looked at his stats from last year. He only played 7 80-minute games, and he averaged 115 in those games. So, and that doesn't include the 65-minute game where he got 80 against the Roosters. So, there's some pretty big scores out there. For the first 3 games, he averaged, he averaged 131 points in his first 3 games. So, and that's just with a fresh, his injury's pretty much gone now, concussion's gone. He's got a full preseason under his belt. He's going to start the same as he did last year and go pretty hard. And they've got a pretty good draw at the start too, the Storm. So he was definitely my first pick. My second pick, just based on value, is Payne Haas. His priced at a 68 average. And he had a pretty rough start to the season. I think new coach, they were tinkering around a bit how they're going to use him. Towards the end of the year, his last 8 games, he averaged 83. If you take out that last game where he was injured, unfortunately, but yeah, 83 average the last 8 games, undervalued completely. And I think he's actually going to go a bit higher this year. I think we discussed a bit earlier that I reckon the front row forwards actually might get a bit of a boost with these new 6 again rules. So I think last year was all about the backs. I think this year it'll be a bit of the backs will still be up here, but the forwards will come up here, I reckon. So I reckon it'll be a bit close that gap a little bit. So.
It's interesting to talk about Pappenhausen because I wrote an article on as well. I'm doing a thing with a team called the Yin and the Yang, and I wrote about Pappenhausen. And of the 7 games he played, 5 of them he got over 100, and the 2 that he got under 100 were against the Eels. So I thought that was interesting that they were. I'm pretty sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. I've been so many articles that I've got my numbers mixed up, but I'm pretty sure that there was 2 in 40 against the Eels.
Yeah, it was actually out of those 7 80-minute games he played, only 1 was below 100. There was a 65-minute game, I think, where he actually got 1. Yeah, I just had looked at it before. So and even then, it was 83 points. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I might have the wrong person. It's not unusual for me. I wrote so many articles. I remember one person that I wrote on, I was pretty sure they played the Eels and got 40 twice. So it must have been one of the fullbacks that I wrote on. All right, so I'll come to you, bro. Who are your 2? How's your team shaping up, and who are your 2 to bring in, mate?
Yeah. So obviously, there's the Pappenhausen, there's Jerome Hughes, and Huss. I've got all of them, so I won't go on to them. I'll jump on the Katoni Stags. I think outside, with the new Broncos attack, I think there's more points. I mean, there can't be less points than what they scored last year. So
you leave the Broncos alone, Brod.
Hey! I'm a Broncos fan, mate.
Good to see.
How did we get 2 Broncos fans on one pod?
Sheer brilliance. Well done, Glenn.
So, I'm seeing some big things from Katoni. Obviously, again, same as Puppy. If his injuries stay away, I see him being rated as the best centre wing this year, especially with his tackle busts and the offloads. And the other one I'm going to go is probably Curran from the Warriors, especially while Tohu's out. I think there's big minutes, probably 80 minutes there, and we all know what he can do. He loves the try line, can smell it out from afar. So
yeah, there's a lot to love about Curran. Actually, he was one of the ones I was going to mention. But the two that I'll mention, I thought that most people would say the ones they did. So I went a little bit out of the generic, and I went into Stefano from the Tigers. I think that starting in the front row, his price is just really nice, points per dollar. And if you watch what he did at the end of last season, I thought he showed a lot. Almost a Haas-like player for me. So he was one of mine. And the other one that I really like is Tavita Pangai Jr. I think he has that offloading game, and I think it's somewhat been stifled in other clubs. I think that at the Dogs, they'll really need that kind of second phase play to get anything with that spine that they've got, because they don't quite have the spine of some of those bigger clubs.
He's the halfback, isn't he?
Somewhat. Yeah, but anyway, so they were the two that I chose out of there. What I wanted to quickly run through was, is there anyone that you think that did well last season? And I'll start with you this time, Brody, that had a big season last year that you think this season I'd avoid starting? And we're not going to go to Turbo because I actually got a little bit at the end that I wanted to do on Turbo. So we'll come back to that. Anyone other than Turbo?
Let's go out there. One of the Parramatta players. You can pick Papali, Madison, King Gutho. I think all of them, even the rag, even Mahomes, I think all of them are going to see a decrease this year. So they're not going to rank as high. I don't think that there'll be as many points. A lot of pressure on the coach. I'm going to put it down that he'll be one of the first ones sacked this year. So,
well, actually interesting. You picked Parramatta. I don't go with all of those, but one of the ones that I wrote in my article was Isaiah Papali. I think once again it comes down to role change. Playing on an edge 80 minutes, I love it. But playing in the front row, his minutes reduce. His input, everything changes. So Isaiah Papali is definitely one for me. How about you, Dan? One player there, or any others that you feel are avoids?
Well, no one's really starting with the guy that I'm thinking of, but I don't think he'll be any good this year anyway. He's too expensive. But Ruben Garrick, I think he had a breakout season last year, but the previous two seasons he averaged 42 and 52, and then goes nuts last year. And people have put it down to Turbo being there. Turbo was there after a few games in those last 2 years as well, and in those games he was getting 20s and 30s. I think he had a freakish year, and great, don't get me wrong, I'm bloody very, very good job, but I don't see it happening again. I pick him to be about a 55 average this year, which is still pretty good. It's better than what he did in the years prior, but I still don't see him being that breakout like he did this year. There's no way he can even compete to last year.
Well, and I think it's more a reflection on how the game was adjudicated last year as opposed to his ability. I mean, as you saw with Turbo, he gets that arm free, and he put Garrick away so many times. And that was, those repeated 6 agains just allowed Manly, a side like Manly with so much strike, to just get on that front foot and put players like Saab on one wing and Garrick on the other. So I agree with you. At his price point, I think Toho and Garrick, I think are just a little bit priced out. I think that their value, especially Toho with his base, is good value. But I just think that, and a conversation I had today at length actually with a few guys back and forthing, is we all sort of come to the same consensus that the game won't be adjudicated like it was last year. And so I think the gap, I think there's a lot of overpriced players, and he's one of them. What about you, Timbo? Sorry, Dan, you had something to say?
Oh, I was going to put up a little, my little unpopular opinion, but I reckon from the Roosters, Tupou will actually outscore Garrick this year quite easily.
Oh, mate, I've got the Roosters tipped to win. I think the two sides this year that have improved are the Roosters and Manly with the other one, actually. I thought Manly were a bit stronger, but especially the Roosters. I've actually tipped the Roosters to win this year. I think there's a few sides on the decline. and the Storm obviously being one of them. I think the Bunnies have lost a lot with A-Ray, and so it'd be interesting. Yeah. What about you, Timbo?
Yeah, mate, I agree with what you said then. I'm definitely not a Roosters fan. They're one of the clubs I love to hate. But, mate, I think the way their season went last year, like it would just be an absolute nightmare for things to go any worse, and they still finished in the 8. So once they go to full strength, which they're going to have this year, they are going to be damn hard to beat. I think all of their outside backs could do anything. I guess there's been a fair bit of talk online about Luke Carey. I think he's an avoid. I think he's just too shaky with his concussion history, with his injury history. He's coming back from a long layoff. Likewise, Ryan Madison. He's a player that traditionally I start every season with because you can bank on 80 points a week from the bloke. He doesn't very often have games less than 80 points. But it's the same thing. I actually disagree with Brod as well with regards to the Eels. I think they'll get onto a flyer like they did last season. They seem to get a Christmas bloody present late every year and get a lovely draw to start the season with. I think they've got a pretty juicy draw to start with again. But I think Maddo is just, he's only one head knock away from another month off or possibly early retirement, heaven forbid, for the poor bloke. But yeah, I think just due to injury history and the layoffs that they can have, Luke Carey I'd be staying away from, and also Ryan Madison.
I think it's interesting because one of the things that I do when I build a side is I look for combinations. And one of my first halves that I didn't mention was Angus Crichton. Angus is in my side. And I think as much as I'd love David Fifita at the price range he's at, I still have some questions around if he starts left side, if he starts right side, if he starts from the bench, who's the half on the inside of him. There's a lot of questions I need to know. What I do like, and I think that Carey is one of those risk rewards. I think that some players could get lucky and start Carey. And if they get that combination, I think it's Carey, Angus, Momorowski, Tupou. That left side's pretty solid. And then, you got the right side. I don't know who's going to be the right side half, possibly Walker or Hutcho. It's up for debate at the moment. But then you got Stilley and Suwali and Manu. So both them edges are lethal for me. And so, yeah, I won't be touching Carey for the reasons you said. One head knock away from being ruled out of the game altogether. And also coming back from an ACL, is that right?
Yeah.
Was it ACL? Yeah. It's interesting. So has anyone else got anything they want to add in relation to voids?
Just on Carey, one thing I do love about Carey when he does play, I don't think he's a SuperCoach relevant player, but like you said, there'll be a couple of guys that get lucky with him. One thing I do love about him is how good he gives points to SuperCoaches to the players around him.
Yeah.
So you watch Teddy will boost up. You're going to have Angus Crichton as well. It's going to be boost up. So I got Angus Crichton in my team as well. I think it's going to be having Carey back, even though it doesn't directly affect me. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does to that team. So.
And another
that little short ball that he pops out to the second row forward is just lethal.
Yeah.
Bit of a show and go, and then just pops it straight to them on that nice little short ball when the second row is running through. He did it for years. Look at Boyd Cordner, used to score really well. But yeah, Angus is, if he and Carey are odds on, like if they're switched on, I should say, mate, Angus could be anything.
And Angus runs incredible lines. One of the other negatives that I see to Carey is Tedesco, Tedesco plays very well left and right side of the field, but he tends to dominate that left side, and he comes on a sweep. And so even though Carey's the one that creates that gap to put Teddy in, and then Teddy picks up someone on his outside like a Tupou or Momorowski, the points always seem to lean to one player, which we all know will be Teddy.
He steals Manu's points.
Yeah, that backline sweep, I should say. Geez, I'm tongue-tied tonight. That backline sweep play that so many of the clubs play so well, and the Roosters better than most. It just, you don't get the reward for the halfback that throws that second last pass.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we'll talk about. So on our next pod, like I said, next Wednesday night, we're going to break down front rowers and we're going to break down the hookers. And there's the kind of things that we'll talk about is what players steal points from each other, points per dollar, value, so sometimes you might look, if price wasn't an issue, we'd all start with Grant, maybe Cook, you know what I mean? And we know how we go. But the point is that one of the biggest parts to SuperCoach is the strategy side of it, which is revenue. You know what I mean? So we'll have a real close look at the value picks, the guns, you know, ones that we feel like we just need to start. For me, I really am toying with Grant. I think Grant might be one of those. So we'll come back to that. So the last question I wanted to ask you tonight was around Turbo and David Fifita. So I'll go to you first, bro. You're starting Turbo or David Fifita?
Not looking at Turbo at all. Not in my plans. None of my teams. Well, Fifi, you know, that guy's a beast. If he starts, he's in my team. Probably not at the expense of Angus Crichton, Curran, but he'll be my third one on there. You know, what can't that guy do?
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting for him to
Get
kick
a
goals
starting
and
spot.
become CP.
What about you, mate? I'll go to you next, Dan. Are you starting Turbo or David Fifita?
No, I've been contemplating starting Fifita, but I think those points that you raised earlier about is he going to be on the right, left? My main concern is Holbrook going to put him on the bench again like he did last year. A lot of articles I see with him starting and all the articles at the bottom are saying that Holbrook should put him here, but like nothing saying that he's actually going to do it. So I just don't know. I'm going to want him in my team eventually, but there's no way I can start with him. I find that second row also, there's so much value in that position there. So yeah, I definitely look at like you can go down a couple of 100,000 and you get Angus Crichton, and you'll probably get maybe not the ceiling, but pretty close to it. So.
And how about you, Timbo? You starting Turbo, you said?
Just going back to what Dan was just saying, I think the hardest part with the Titans is they were winning football games last year starting Bo Firma.
Yeah.
And then bringing Fifi on after 20 minutes and letting him run after that. I think it's bad for SuperCoach, but it's good for the Titans. So we might not all like it, but it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if Bo Firma starts and Fifita sits on the bench for 20 minutes, waits for everyone to get tired, and then comes and steamrolls them all. Means he doesn't play 80 minutes, but he's going to get attacking stats and tackle busts and things like that when he does come on and running through tired forwards. We all know that his standard is much higher than a lot of the other bench forwards in the game. So he's going to run over them as well, as same as he would any other time. So as far as Fifita or Turbo at the moment, my current team, not the one that's actually right behind me because this is from about a week and a half ago. But yeah, at the moment, I'm not starting either. But now that Cleary's out, I'm trying to jiggle things around to see if I can get Turbo in. I think that first game against Penrith with no Cleary, if that's the way that it goes, I think it's going to be hard not to go Turbo. And even better, it might even be a bit of a pod play for an early jump.
Yeah, it's definitely a pod play. I think that starting Turbo, I'm not touching him. I won't look at him at all at the moment. I think points per dollar, it just doesn't make sense to me personally. I don't think that the gap between his price point, Tedesco's and Pappenhausen's, is what it was last year. I think that there's money to be made in Tedesco. I think there's money to be made in Pappenhausen. I think there's money to be lost in Turbo. That's yet to be seen. I mean, he's a freak. And the other factor around Fifita and Turbo for me was the fact that I don't think we're going to see the same product this year in rugby league that we saw last year. And that alone will bring back those set line defenders, you know, that will shut down things like Fifita's, you know. And if he's playing off the bench, 20 minutes less, I mean, it's all about opportunities. The more minutes you spend on the field, the more opportunities you have to score. And 20 minutes of those being on the bench for me is a big negative. But I won't begrudge anyone starting either because they're both genuine SuperCoach guns.
But, you know, what's with the clubs? $1 million, Lolo, Fifi, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know, at least the Roosters are getting value for their dollars. You know, you look at Manly, you know, you're paying DCE and Turbo half your salary cap, but they're worth it. So
if the game, bro, was to stay like it did last year, I'll just quickly say this. I think that I actually can see the sense in Fifita from the bench. I think players like Cameron Murray, Victor Radley, Connor Watson, those type kind like players are ideal. I mean, I was saying to someone the other day, that would be my perfect bench for Origin. Those three players with a utility like a Pappenhausen would be phenomenal. That's based on it being played the way it was last year. What's to be seen is, and we get the trials, which is interesting. All of them are going to be on Fox this year and KO. So we'll be able to see how the game's adjudicated. We might not get to see the rotations we want to see. But so what I want to do quickly, guys, I'm going to go to each one of you one more time. If there's anything else you wanted to say, anything you've left out, so I'll start with you, Dan.
Just one thing for Timmy. If you're starting with, if you do try to get Turbo in, who's your backup fullback going to be? Are you going to get one of the other guns as well, or are you going to have to sacrifice?
Yeah, I think I can jiggle things around. It obviously means going lighter in other areas, but I think you've got to start with 2 gun fullbacks, as they're the 2 highest point scoring players in the game, as in positions in the game, I should say. So you've got to have 2 gun fullbacks, like it or lump it. But it might mean going 2 really cheap hookers, might mean going a little bit lighter in the second row, or I've seen some teams floating around that have gone cheaper in the front row and basically just truck loaded the outside backs in the centre wings and the fullbacks. It's not something that I'd thought about doing, but when I looked at a bloke's team the other day, I went, yeah, maybe. It's he's sort of $300-$400 players tops in the front and second row, and he spread the cash around down the backs.
If the game was played like it was last year, mate, I actually said to my son, I like the idea of, instead of having a strike second rower, having a strike centre winger, and one that I knew had a good draw going in that could get me that 150 score maybe once or twice in the first few rounds to really elevate up the order. But I reiterate, once we see the trials, that'll give me a better idea on what guns that I'm prepared to pay up for. And I think the bigger one would be Teamless Tuesday. When Teamless Tuesday reveals itself, hopefully there's a couple of smokies in there in the cheapy category that really enables us to go, hey, we can download him, get him, downgrade, him, and then that cash enables us to lift. Like you, I still have Cleary in my side, so I have that cash to spend. But I'm actually going to leave Cleary there until I get a bit more certainty around, at the moment we've just got someone saying it from Queensland. It's a good friend of mine, Catfish. He's the one who put out the comment. So he's in my Immortals team, so I believe him. But I live in Penrith and I haven't heard it. So I'm hoping, I'm just hoping it's not true.
I think Catfish is usually on the money, and he's obviously got really good sources, and he's a top bloke, and he certainly wouldn't steer anyone away.
No, that's right.
Someone did bring up the point online today or yesterday, though, that they've got live footage of this week at Panthers training, and Nathan Cleary's running around. He's not in an orange "don't tackle me" bib or anything like that. So you'd like to think if he's running around with the first team squad and throwing a footy and everything else without a "don't hurt me" bib, that's got to say something that maybe he's not as far away as some people are making it out to be.
Well, the report
not for 1 second saying that Catfish's info is not true. It's got to make you think if the footage that was sent out online this week of Cleary running around with the rest of the squad is current footage.
Yeah, and look, every bit of information I've got for him, he's one of those great sources. That one of the things that I think coaches need to learn out there is those sources, where to look. Like NRL Physio, SuperCoach Stats. And checking out all the different pages. So just quickly, I'll go to you, bro. Was there anything you wanted to add, mate, that I haven't mentioned or you'd like to mention?
Just obviously, we're all up for a good year. Obviously, we're all here to have fun, talk footy, and classics has changed, as you said, different leagues. So it's good to see, and draft's been revamped. As a big draft user, I'm pretty happy with what they've done in SuperCoach this year. So it's good to see.
There's a couple of big comps running this season too, which we'll post on our page. As always, Carey runs the Turbo Hammies Cup, and so that will be interesting to see all the different pages and contributors that are in that competition. And also, I've got a competition going with the 1%ers that I've created. So we'll talk more about how those unfold. I just want to give a quick shout out to a few of the pages, which is so we've got 360 podcast on Tuesday night with Justin, Con, and
Bergs.
Sorry, Bergs. And Bergs. I don't know how I can forget him, the redhead. And lovely guys too, you know what I mean? So that's them. We've got Chill Position podcast with SuperCoach Whisper and Brew Glenn. We've got Adrianosaurus Rex, and he's a really nice guy, and he has some really good stuff. And if you listen to all of his pods, you'll even get a bit of a sing-song at the end. So, Tim and Des and co at SuperCoach Playbook, they have really in-depth analysis of stuff, so check that stuff out. Who else have I got down here? SuperCoach Experience with Sav and the boys. So check them out. And I'm sure I'm missing others. The Champions podcast with Wilfred and co. And there are heaps of others, guys, that I've probably forgotten. But one of the things that I love about SuperCoach, and I'm sure all of us will attest to this, is the actual community. You know, the fact that we're actually like a little community of mates. You know, we all chat. We love football. We love SuperCoach. We love strategy. We love arguing. And we go back and forth all the time. And we're always all right, you know, and it's each year one of us gets to brag how well we did and the other one gets to whinge about how shit they did. And then we just want the year to be over and get to the next one so we can do it all again. And so, yeah, get involved, guys. Jump on Tragics, our page, and have a look at them other pages and check out Brody and his cash comps. He's been running them now 3 or 4 years on our page.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, and everyone's been paid. I've won a bit of money there. My son's won a bit of coin. Did he come second in all the comps you just did?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, and he was all paid.
Pretty
So
well.
everyone's being paid out. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on tonight, and I look forward to you guys coming next Wednesday. And thank you, Timmy, for coming on, and you'll be a regular with us. And just a quick one thing I've forgotten, Tim and I are actually going to run our own little pod called the Yin and the Yang. It'll only be a 10-minute thing, and what it is that Tim's going to write his 3 each round that is a fear factor. Do you want to tell them how your side's working quick, Tim?
Yeah. Basically, I'm calling it Timmy O's fear factor, in that it's basically 3 players each round, looking at the next 3 rounds in front, which is generally how I play. I don't sort of just look at the stuff that's in front of me. I'm always looking 3 rounds ahead. So looking at essentially some of the first ones that we're looking at, actually, no, I won't reveal. I'll wait till that gets released on our 360 page when it comes out. So yeah, it's basically the 3 scariest players that you are freaking out that you're not going to have in your team for that round, or basically 3 players that you just can't possibly leave out for the next 3 rounds.
That's right. And I'm the Yang, so everything he writes, I'm going to tell him he's wrong every single time.
Which is nothing new.
No, that's nothing new. That's right. No,
it's just another person telling me I'm wrong.
Saying the 3 players for that round who I think will flunk. That's more of our mind. So, and quickly, Dan, you mentioned something that we're going to run at the end of when the season's actually running, which is our Super 8s for Tragics. You want to tell us how that's going to look?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Obviously, a few years back, we used to have Super 8, which was attached to our SuperCoach page, where you had to pick the highest, or who you thought was going to be the highest score of each game. So amongst the Tragics admin boys, we're going to do a spreadsheet there. And a lot of the guys on other podcasts, they'll do like their bold predictions, or they'll do their tipping, and they'll share it with the guys out there. But we're going to do something a bit different and do our own Super 8. So we'll share at the end of our podcast who we've tipped in each game. And then at the next podcast, we'll let you know how we went, and we'll keep doing that all year. So looking forward to that.
And we're going to keep a score of that with all of us, are we?
Yeah. So we're going to pretty much, the score won't be what they've scored like it was in Super 8. If you've got the highest score in that round, you get a point. So we're going to do it that way, yeah. So I'll make it nice and simple rather than have to keep those big scores going. So
all right, nice. And
Sorry, Timmy won't have to worry about the big scores.
And Brody, I was going to say one more thing. The Tragics overall group, can you tell people what they win if they come first place in the Tragics overall?
Yeah, so 3rd year we've been doing this. Lucky that we've got the first champion on here. Dan won it the first year. But yeah, we've got a ring from SuperCoach Championship Rings, who have donated a ring to us. So the winner will get the ring, and they'll get a free entry to $100 head-to-head next year. So, you know, it's a $200 prize. So very good. Just jump in the overalls, which Glenn rattled off before. Let's get a few hundred in there this year.
Yeah.
As a previous winner of that, the ring was great, but I flunked pretty bad in the $100 cash of the year after, just so you know. So
I feel aggrieved, man. I reckon I would have won it a couple of times had we had it going longer.
Guys, just on that, a massive shout out to the guys that do make the SuperCoach rings. They support a lot of the podcast pages.
Yeah,
they're really helping us out. Obviously, it's we're getting their information out there as well. But can I just make a suggestion? The rings do look sensational. They do look after the customer. So if anybody is interested, like I've got some leagues, head-to-head leagues that I've been part of for a number of years now, and some of us are starting to talk about maybe, as well as our $30 buy-in or $20 buy-in at the start of the year, maybe we all chip in a little bit more and try and get the champion a ring each year. So yeah,
it's literally $5 each extra. That's literally all it is. If you have a 20-man head-to-head league, it's nothing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
we might even look at doing that for our admin one.
Hey, it's $4.80. If you use the code Tragics on their page,
yeah,
you get 5% discount, and they'll express post it to you as well.
Yeah, nice.
So do you know what their website is off the top of your head there, Brod?
Everything's through Facebook these days, so just look up SuperCoach Championship.
It's on our page.
I'll advertise it with all our pages. We'll put it up after Glenn puts his post up so they can see it.
Yeah, nice.
Fantastic. So I know that we're running a comp. It's a bit of a twist with ours. If you listened to the podcast last night with the SuperCoach 360 boys, I know that we've got a ring and we're offering it out there. So make sure you jump online, listen to the boys from their pod last night, and get the details of how you can get yourself one of the rings through SuperCoach 360.
I can win 2 rings this year.
Oh, mate, you're in a few of the comps, aren't you, Brod? You could go. You got 2 hands, mate, 10 fingers. Can't see how many things.
I'll just read the numbers out one more time, guys. So it's 922-904. That's for the Tragics one, and it's 790-873. That's for the 361. And that will end our pod there. Don't forget, jump on our page. You obviously have been on our page anyway to watch this, but it'll probably be sent to other pages. Dan's going to try and work it so we get it on a few other places like iPod or whatever.
I'll chuck it on YouTube, mate, as well. I'll get it out there for everyone to see. So
yeah, nice. No worries. All right, guys. Well, thank you and good night.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Much appreciated.
Cheers, boys.